for spring gobblers. There's a lot of states where you can hunt all day long, and there's some states that you can't. I know in Missouri it's a 1 o'clock in the day cutoff, so no one is legally supposed to be out hunting after 1 o'clock. I know in Virginia it's 12 o'clock for the first few weeks of season, and then I think the last 2 weeks of season you can hunt all day. And I think in Pennsylvania and maybe a few other states there's a cutoff time. So if you live in these states, you can't hunt legally in the evening, so this video probably won't appeal much to you. But there are many more states that you can hunt all day. So we're going to be diving into this and talking about evening hunting, because it is a lot different type hunting, and you know, it can be slow at times, and not like, you know, your morning, typical morning, because let's face it, turkey hunting is a morning, mid-morning, daylight to mid-morning, you know, hunt. You know, if we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty. But if you can hunt in a state where you can hunt all day, you don't want to overlook evening hunting, because it can be very good, and you can be very successful. In fact, the largest gobbler I ever killed, weight-wise, was in an evening hunt. Shot him at 6:30 one evening. It was a 27-pound gobbler I shot in Oklahoma a few years back, and actually before that, about an hour and a half before that, I called in another turkey that gobbled great, and I just couldn't get a shot. It was a little bit too brushy, and I had to let him walk on by, but I'm kind of glad that happened, because I wound up killing that bigger one just a little bit after that. That was the evening where turkeys was really gobbling good. But for the most part, you're going to have turkeys that's kind of more silent than anything. You're not really going to find a lot of turkeys that's fired up and gobbling a lot like they are, say, in the mornings off the roost, or maybe up in the mid-mornings when they leave their hens. So you can find a lot of dead spots as far as gobbling in the evenings. But if you're hunting a state, let's say you're you know like I am, you travel different states and hunt, and so you've only got a few days to do this in. You want to be out there as much as possible, and so I never look like a good evening hunt. So here's some of the things that you got to kind of break down in the evenings. So let's think about turkey behavior. We've been talking about turkey behavior the last couple videos. Well, let's talk about turkey behavior in general. When they fly down, they get with their hens, they strut, they gobble around, they do their morning thing. Or let's say they leave the hens, and you know, they kind of get away from them and gobble a little bit more. But by the time the evening approaches, it's a lot of feeding turkeys that you see. They're out in fields picking around, or open flats in the timber scratching around. So it's a lot of feeding going on. They're still mating. They'll still mate, you know, and when they get with the hen, that never stops. But a lot of times you'll find gobblers kind of by themselves, and you'll find them that's just got quiet. Hens by themselves, gobblers by themselves. So what you want to do is you want to become that turkey that's pretty much feeding along. They're just, you know, moving through the woods, just kind of feeding. That's kind of what you want to portray yourself as a feeding hen. And so you got to call a little bit different. Your calling gets a lot softer. You got to, you know, tone everything down, unless the turkeys want, you know, aggressive calling. Now, sometimes you'll find, like my Oklahoma hunts, you'll find a turkey that just is really fired up in the evening. So if he's fired up, I'm going to get fired up, and I'm going to, you know, kind of throw that rule out the door. You know, if he wants loud calling, then I'm going to call loud. However, what you're going to find most evening hunts is a soft approach, and you kind of got to tone everything down. This is where soft calling really comes into play. You see, we kind of tend to forget that hens are making turkey sounds all day. You just don't hear them because they're so soft. A hunter cannot hear them 70, 80, 90, 100 yards like you can when they're cutting or they're yelping real loud and you hear a hen. Kind of think about this. How many days actually do you hear a hen in the spring gobbler woods? If you take it for a day, if you take it from day by day and you take a whole season, how many of them days did you actually hear a hen get fired up? Probably not as much as you did, say, a gobbler. You're going to hear a lot more gobblers in the spring than you will a hen, as far as generally speaking. Now, you're going to hear hens yelping and cutting and all that stuff, but every single day, them hens that you're not hearing on a day-by-day basis is out there making noises. And it's usually feeding noises and soft purrs and clucks and whistles and whines. All that stuff they're doing when they're right around that gobbler, you know, 50, 60 yards around that gobbler. These gobblers are hearing that. So in the evening, when the hens are just out there picking around and feeding around on grasshoppers and grass and in the fields, you know, scratching and acorns and all this stuff, you want to become that hen that's feeding. So this is where you got to practice your feeding calls. You want to practice them soft little clucks and soft little purrs and whines and whistles and all of that stuff. So I want you to just kind of lend me lend me your mind a minute, and let's pretend that we're a hen that's just moved in to an open field. Maybe it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, 5 o'clock in the evening, and you want to become that feeding hen. That's what we're going to portray, and that's what we're going to try to be. Once we establish we're going to become that feeding hen, now we've got to plan a setup. Now, a setup in the evening, there's kind of a rule of thumb that a lot of people do is they want to get around the roost area. Now, here's where you've got to make a decision. Now listen to me real carefully. You've got to make a decision of how close you want to actually get to a known roost site. If you want to get close to a roost site and sit under a turkey's roost, a lot of times you'll find a turkey that'll roost in the same tree. I've seen them roost in the same tree 4 or 5 mornings straight. And if you know a turkey has a particular roost site that he's using for multiple days, and it really comes down to ethically how close you want to get to that roost site. Do you want to sit close to that tree, like right under that tree, and just wait for him to come back to roost and then shoot him? And everybody's going to have to make a decision on how ethical that they think that really is. Everybody has their own ethical standard. I'm not going to knock anybody that harvests a turkey any legal way, but for me, and I'm just talking about me, I wouldn't do that. For one, I just don't like it ethically. I don't like sitting under a known roost tree and waiting for him to come back to roost, because in my opinion, it's pretty much the same as shooting him off the roost at daylight, which is totally unethical in my opinion. And I think when you're hunting that close to a roost tree or a roost area, that's kind of what it is. You're taking away from the art of turkey hunting, in my opinion. Now, some of you may disagree with that, and that's fine. But that's from the ethical standpoint. From the turkey hunting standpoint, let's talk about why I don't like to do that. From the turkey hunting standpoint, I don't like sitting really close to his roost tree for the simple fact that what if I make a mistake? What if he sees me? What if I'm sitting maybe over in this direction point, and he comes in behind me, and I'm trying to make a move? Thinking anything can happen. It's turkey hunting. You make the wrong move or something, and he putts and he's out of there. Well, you blowed that chance for the next morning. If you wouldn't blowed the chance, let's say you're sitting 80, 90, 100 yards, 70, whatever yards away from that roost tree, and you're kind of right there at the back door of his roost tree, and you're just kind of waiting for him to move in that area, and you're calling to him, and he's coming to calls on his way to a roost site. Then, even if you don't kill him, you've got a chance that he's going to walk on by you. If you set motionless and set still, he's going to walk right on by you, and go on to his roost. And a lot of times you can hear him fly up in the tree, and you'll have a good starting point for the next morning. And when daylight comes, you can be right back in there, even closer, and get tight on him. A lot of times you can have a really good quick hunt. Because you already know where he's at. But if you were sitting right at his roost tree, you were sitting right by it, and you spook him, then it's pretty much over. He's going out of there, and you're going to mess that particular spot up. So from a turkey hunting standpoint, I just don't like getting super close, in case it's an insurance, in case I make a mistake, and I blow him. And ethically, I just don't like doing it. So that's my opinion. Now, what I'm going to do is, once I find an area where turkeys have been roosting, then I'm going to kind of get around, like a 70 to 100 yard area of that roost site, and I'm going to start setting up in there 3 or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever, and I'm just going to sit there and call and be a hen that's just moved in there feeding along, maybe doing some soft calling, and just pretty much wait on them to come back in that area. A lot of times you'll find turkeys that he may gobble just one time, just maybe gobble once, letting you know he's there, and you call him right in. He'll come strutting just like he does in the morning, and you'll be able to kill him and get a good evening hunt like that. So once I find, of course, you find it by scouting and knowing where the turkeys are roosting, and kind of knowing. You see the feathers, or maybe you've heard them there different evenings. Maybe you heard him there that morning. You come back in there that evening thinking he's going to be back in that area. Once I get back in that area, then I'm going to become that feeding hen that's just moved in there and doing normal turkey behavior. This is where you've got to call that, what we've talked about before. You've got to call that under your breath calling, very soft calling. You can do it with a slate call. That's really good. If you can't run a mouth very good, you can do it on a slate. But a mouth call probably is the best tool to put feeling in that call and to do a lot of good extra stuff that sometimes it takes to sound as real as possible. So here's some of the feeding calls, and here's some of the soft calling that hens do all day long. You just don't hear it out there because it's so soft. But this is what you want to do. I'll set up, and once I get set up, even if they're not gobbling, which they probably won't be, I'm going to set up and I'm going to start calling like this. I'm going to start out with maybe a few clucks. Don't ever overlook a cluck. You know, a cluck is a deadly, deadly call. You know, so learn to cluck really good. Just set, you know, maybe start out with a few clucks. Then what you want to do is just imagine in your head, again, being that hen that's out there scratching. Maybe if you want to reach over and scratch the leaves a little bit, that's fine. Make it more real. And just imagine that hen out there feeding along, and here's what you want to do. If you want to throw a few yelps in there, soft yelps, that's fine too. You're just being a hen out there. Stuff like that. Throw that little, feed calls and stuff in there. As far as doing the little feed calls like this, I've done that right there a lot, and turkeys just totally, you know, you just see them totally just get really fired up and be out there strutting, and they'll just come on in. You can do that in the mornings too, but you want to sound like that feeding hen just moving around there. And all you're doing as far as the feeding sound is you're just pretty much saying do it kind of in the back if you can. Just get you a good call that you can call real good under your breath. This particular one is a bat wing. You can do it on what I like is, you've heard me say it before, just a double recall that has no cut at all. I always have one of them usually in my pack. But any turkey call, as far as that you can do them really soft sounds with, that's what you want to do. What you don't want to do is you don't want to get out there a lot, and again, unless the turkeys are fired up and they're wanting that aggressive call and he's ready to come in. Then it kind of changes. But normally what you want is just to get in there and call soft. What you don't want to do is get in there and just start cutting and yelping and shaking the trees, because that's really not what turkeys are doing most in the evenings. And a lot of times turkeys will just come in all of a sudden and maybe he might gobble one time. But what you want to do is you want to always be ready and not have your gun laying back here on the tree or maybe across your lap. You kind of want your gun in that position. Now, I know a lot of times you can't hold it up, you know, for hours at a time because you get tired. But I usually have it laying right here. I want it in front of me, that way that if the turkey comes in and I'm not ready, I'm going to wait till he fans out and you know, and his head gets covered with the fan. Then I can kind of move up. You know, or his head gets behind the tree, I can maybe move a little bit. So I want that gun in a ready position as much as possible, because a lot of times they won't say a thing. They'll just come slipping in there, and maybe you'll hear him spitting and drumming, and you'll look over and there he is, and he's already in gun range. Or he might gobble one time and be coming right to you in just a few minutes. So evening hunting can be very productive if you do it the right way and don't get over aggressive with your calling, and just kind of be that feeding hen out there that's doing turkey things. If the gobbler gets fired up and he starts gobbling at me and he starts answering me and it gets really, you know, we get on this emotional thing, me and him, then I'm going to throw the rule book of evening hunting out the door and I'm going to hunt him the way he wants me to hunt him. Sometimes you got to let the turkeys tell you what he wants, and that'll help you a lot when you read gobblers. But again, just get up in these little places and do that little soft calling, and a lot of times that's going to help you bag more turkeys in evening situations. If you're a fan of decoys, you know me, I'm not a huge fan of decoys. I rarely ever use one. But if I do use a decoy, a lot of times it's in the evening, because it seems like the evening they respond to a decoy a little bit better, in my opinion. they're out there doing turkey things, and they might see maybe a feeding hen if you got one, or a lone hen. They see that, and a lot of times they'll slip right in there, and it can help you. So I do that a lot in the evening. I carry one decoy with me. That's about all I own. And sometimes in the evening when it's slow, I'll stick that decoy up, because you never know. Get in a place where you can see, kind of get a place where you can kind of use your eyesight. I set up in open places a lot more than I would in the morning. Say in the mornings I like to hunt hardwood ridges if it's all possible, and I've got food plots and fields and maybe a lot of open timber. I'm going to sit there in the evening where I can put eyeballs and look and use my eyesight more than my hearing, because gobblers are just not really vocal. And then I'm going to sit and just kind of watch, because I don't want a turkey coming in on top of me, even though they might sometimes already will. I want a bigger field of view where I can watch him. So little things like that will help you. So I hunt a lot of fields in the evenings with a decoy, if I use a decoy at all. So just remember these little things, and I believe that evening hunting might pay off for you this coming year if you can hunt evenings, because it can be very good at times. And plus, if you don't kill one, you're out there roosting turkeys at the same time. So if if you hear any around, you kind of got a good indication of where to start the next morning. So try that evening hunting and that soft calling and the feeding calls, and it will make you a lot better evening hunter, in my opinion. And I believe it will pay off for you. Please take a moment, subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. We got a lot of great turkey hunting content coming in the weeks to come. Also, check out all the great sponsors in the links below. Check out Spring Fever Custom Calls, where you can pick up my Matt Dell Signature Series box call, old slide box call. In fact, we just got a bunch of new ones made, so if you've been having trouble getting one, go over there right now and you should be able to get one. Check out my Matt Dell Signature Series mouth calls. Spring Fever has them also, 2.5. Also, while you're over there, get a classical Dell Outdoors t-shirt. Support the channel here. Check out my brand new online store where you can get hoodies like this, Dell Outdoor merchandise, and a lot of great shirts and hoodies. Check that out as well. So the links will be in the description. Check out SOSO Outdoors and like and follow their media platforms and website also. Check out all the YouTube pages, the Spring Fever YouTube page, SOSO Outdoors YouTube page, and subscribe to them guys also. I know that they would really appreciate it, and we appreciate your support as well, and we look forward to bringing you more turkey hunting content in the weeks to come. So you stay tuned, and we'll be back with another video very shortly.